Hello and welcome to the last talk of the day. I have the great honor to close this day of awesome talks with a rant about a person, a fictional person a lot of people really like. So that will give me some great bonus points from all of you. So looking forward to that. The person I'm talking about is Master Yoda. And he's well known for his remarkable insights about life and everything, like do or do not, there is no try, and stuff like that. So we will talk about all of that and why I'm deeply annoyed by this tiny person. Um, Warning: this talk contains spoilers for the first 6 Star Wars movies. If you haven't seen them, then this will be a spoiler. But if you haven't seen them at this point, you probably don't want to see them, so that's not a huge problem. But just to get that out of the way. Okay, so if you remember the old Star Wars movies, there's a scene in there where Yoda and is mentoring Luke in using the Force, right? So he wants to teach him how to use the Force, and Luke is sitting there and he's really struggling to lift up some stones, but he manages it. Like, if have you ever managed to lift up stones with your mind? I haven't. Luke manages to do it, so I would say that's a pretty good achievement, but Yoda is not satisfied. Yoda is saying like, no, now lift up this giant chip because those stones are way too small. Please lift up those stones. And Luke's like, that looks pretty hard. That's a pretty big ship. Like, I just lifted up like 5 tiny stones and you want me to lift up this ship? But I'll try it. And Yoda is like, do or do not, there's no try. So what kind of motivational speak is that? It sounds a lot like this, how to draw an owl, draw some circles, and then draw the rest of the fucking owl thing, right? You just learned to draw some circles, and now you are supposed to draw an owl from that. So how is that supposed to work? But yeah, that's what Yoda says, and we keep repeating this weird do or do not thing. In my opinion, this is something called gatekeeping. So it's a way to show someone that they don't belong into this realm of people that are in there, like people that are Okay, so there was a tiny hiccup. I'm back. This is gatekeeping. What he's doing here is saying like, you don't belong here. You're not smart enough to do this. You're not good enough to do this. And we do this all the time in programming as well, right? Why is this bullshit? This is bullshit because trying is the only thing you can do, right? If you want to do something, you need to try to do it, and if you do it again and again and again, then at some top point, with a bit of luck, you will be able to do it, right? This is how learning new stuff works. You can't do them in the beginning, and then you try it, and at some point, you are able to do them, right? Um, but does that make him a villain? I don't know. I think it makes him a kind of a bad person. It doesn't make him a villain. But we will get to the villain part, right? So Yoda is also very known for this thing, like fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering, right? That's something he says at various points in the movies, right? So he says that as, I don't know, a prep talk or something. But let's look at the history of a small boy called Anakin, right? So there's a boy, and he's forced to leave his mother enslaved, right? Not a great feeling, I think. So he leaves his mother back, and she's still a slave while he's free. The Jedi's, they could have done something. They could have taken the mother with them. They decide not to. They just take the boy with them and leave the mother back there. Then there's this tiny boy. I mean, like, really tiny boy, and the council says like, boy, you're a little bit too emotional for this, right? I don't think you can be a Jedi. You're way too emotional. And they're saying that because he misses his mom, who he had to leave as a slave on his home planet, which is kind of an asshole move, right? And then Yoda comes in and he says like, "Oh, afraid to lose her? Hmm? What kind of a thing is that? Like, how can you say that to a tiny boy who just lost his mother, right?" I guess it's pretty normal to feel like you're losing your mother if you left her on a different planet. But yeah, that's not the end. He's also forced to hide his relationship to the woman he loves, just because that's not what Jedi should do, right? He also is forced to hide that he is becoming a father, because that's also something he should not do. So he's becoming sleep deprived because he's just like full of fear of losing his wife, losing his mom, losing his child, right? Which is pretty normal in his situation, I think. But yeah, he tries to get advice from his counselor, his master, right? So what does Yoda say? Yoda says, "The fear of loss is a path to the dark side. Death is a natural part of life. Mourn them, do not. Miss them, do not. Attachment leads to jealousy, the shadow of greed that is. Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose." That's super helpful, right? Like he's really in a dark place, and that's what Yoda says. So he gets even more sad, and nobody does anything. So the mother is killed. Now he's of course in a very emotional place, right? So he's now an easy target for an emotional abuser, like this guy, and he starts to manipulate him to get him to his side, the dark side, right? And I'm not saying the dark side is better than the Jedi, but yeah. The wife flees from him because she's very afraid of him because he's becoming kind of a killer and kills people with his laser sword. And then he kills dozens of children. Then he tortures and nearly kills his wife, and then helps enslave the entire galaxy, right? So this was due to the great mentoring of Yoda. So he is such a smart little green man, and he had this great tips for him, like don't mourn the dead. Like awesome, he's afraid. Please help him. So some people might think maybe that's some kind of philosophy that he's like giving him to him, like something like maybe Stoicism, right? So it sounds a bit like Stoicism. It's an old Greek philosophy, right? And maybe if you read Seneca, it might sound a little bit like that, like always like picture the worst case scenario just in case, because then nothing worse can happen, and that's cool. But that's not really what Seneca say, in my opinion. But we will get back to that in a minute. The other thing, the other philosophy you might think about is maybe Buddhism, right? So you hear Yoda and you're thinking, oh, that's Buddhism, right? But I don't think it is Buddhism. And it's kind of a twisted version of the Four Noble Truth. It's kind of something taken from the Eightfold Path from Buddhism, but I think it works entirely differently. So I'm neither a Stoic nor a Buddhist, but like I've read a lot of Buddhist and Stoic stuff. So my basic understanding of the core ideas, that's very simplified, just to be clear, is this. And I think it was presented best by Gore Kapol Das, who is not a Buddhist. We will get back to that, but I think it's still like the essence of both the Stoic and the Buddhist philosophy. So do you have a problem in life is the question. And you say no, then why should you worry about it? You don't have a problem, you don't need to worry, right? What if you have a problem? Then there are basically two choices, right? Can you do something about it? That's the question. And if you can do something about it, then why do you need to worry? Because then you can do something about it. Then just do that, right? what if you can't? Then why worry? You can't do anything about it. Why worry about it, right? I think that's, like, a little bit jokingly, of course, the core philosophy of Buddhism and Stoicism. And I think one core part of this, though, is that if you are in the thing, can you do something about it? Then the philosophy doesn't say that, then don't do it, right? That's basically what Yoda is saying. Like, I'm afraid my mom is dying. You could do something about it, but you just don't do something about it because death is a natural part of life. And that's, I think, not the point here, right? Just to make it clear, the person I stole that part from is neither a Stoic nor a Buddhist. He's a Hindu, but I think his description matches, oversimplified the description of both. So I think what Yoda is doing is neither Stoicism nor Buddhism. So let's look at it again. Like, what's the formula? The formula that Yoda basically sets up is this. If you have emotional attachment, it always leads to fear, because if you are emotionally attached, you are afraid of losing that emotional connection, right? And yes, that's kind of true. That can happen, but is it always the case? Maybe. I don't know. And fear always leads to anger, which is kind of a stretch, but we can get where it's coming from. And anger always leads to hate, and then suffering, and then dark side, right? So this is like a slippery slope argument on steroids, basically. But yeah, that's what the formula is when you look at what Yoda is saying. Do not get emotionally attached to anyone, because it could lead to all those steps, and in the end, you are at the dark side, right? That's what Yoda is saying. And this is not only what Yoda is saying. This is, I don't know, I'm not an expert, but it sounds a lot like Yoda influenced the entire Jedi religion quite a lot. So people like Obi-Wan say things like, bury your feelings deep down, Luke, which is such a helpful, healthy thing to do, right? Or Yoda says things like, he's too emotional. So that's the Jedi philosophy in a nutshell. Do not get emotionally attached to anyone, because then you will become one of the bad people on the dark side, right? And basically, that means that emotion and attachment are seen as a weakness, right? They are a weakness that can be exploited by someone else, right? And I think this is neither Stoicism nor Buddhism. This is something different. And I don't want to solve this mystery. I have opinions what this is, but I will leave that up to you to discuss it. The question is, we saw this a whole thing with Anakin, right? How bad it all became. He became Darth Vader in the end, right? But why doesn't this happen to Luke? Because Luke is also taught by Yoda and taught by people from the Order. Why does he save the universe while Darth Vader doesn't? What is the difference? And the thing is, Luke doesn't listen to Yoda. And that's the trick, right? That's the reason why Luke saves the universe and Anakin tries to destroy it, right? He also doesn't listen to Obi-Wan in most cases. Like, Obi-Wan tells him to kill his father. He says, like, kill your father. This will be very helpful. And he doesn't. He doesn't. And his father, in the end, helps him to kill the Emperor and stuff like that. He also doesn't leave his friends. Like, Yoda says, leave your friends to die and end your training as a Jedi Master, blah, 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 blah. He doesn't. And that also helps him save the universe. If he would have listened to Yoda, things would have probably not ended up in the way that they ended up. And probably a lot of people would have died. The universe would stay enslaved, and so on and so on. But Luke would be a great Jedi Master. And the thing is, like, Luke is emotionally attached to a lot of other people in the universe. Like, he has friends, something that we don't see in Anakin. Anakin doesn't really have friends. He has his wife that he loves, but he doesn't have any friends. He only has his mentors that are Jedis with this questionable philosophy, right? But Luke has friends, and he shows this in the entire movies where he's in, right? He has emotional attachments to all of them. And that's forbidden, right? He shouldn't be emotionally attached to Han Solo or other people that he flies around in the universe, right? But he does it, and it helps him save the universe. So that's kind of weird. Um, it's also interesting to note that in the new movies, the three new movies that came out, like I don't know when, but kind of recently, Jedi culture changes quite a lot. Like I'm not trying to spoil those movies because they are not as old as the other ones. But to say the least, like Jedi Masters, they learn from their supposed Padawans, right? They are in a relationship where they learn from each other. And I think those three new movies are better than the 6 old ones. So Yoda's philosophy leads to Anakin becoming Darth Vader, and they would have prevented Luke from saving the galaxy. I think that makes him a villain, right? Because if Luke would have listened to him, the galaxy would have been enslaved, right? So he's emotionally abusive to children, tells them that they are too emotional for missing their mom. He's elitist as hell. He tried to keep Luke from saving everyone, like his friends and the universe. And he created Darth Vader. I think that rests my case, and we can call him a villain. But I don't want to end with that because, like, okay, you all should stop saying that Yoda is a good guy. But I also think there are some really important lessons for us. So don't be like Yoda, right? Okay, you should not be emotionally abusive to children and so on and so on, but you all know that. But I think you should also be supportive of learning. Like people don't learn if you tell them just lift up the fucking ship, right? They learn because you mentor them, you help them where they are right now. If they are currently lifting up tiny stones, don't go to letting them lift up an entire ship. Let them lift up a bigger stone and a bigger stone, and then maybe at some point let them lift the entire ship. But don't skip all the steps in between, right? Be welcome to people less experienced than you. Don't be a grumpy guy sitting in his hut and be like, I don't want to teach anyone anything because I'm grumpy. Luke does that in the new movies as well, but okay, let's skip that. You should also not see emotions and human connections as weak or evil. They are a super important part of life. They make you strong. They can help Luke save the universe, right? So don't skip those. Those are more important. Offer emotional support. We are all emotional beings. We should all support each other. We are not robots. We are not Jedi masters. We are people, and we need emotional support. And take learning as a partnership. If you have a mentee and you're a mentor, then mentor the person and also be open to learning from them, because that's what a good mentoring partnership is. It's a two-way street, not a one-way street. So thank you for listening to me in this late evening. If you want to have a more interesting analysis of pop culture movies, there's a Pop Culture Detective on YouTube. I recommend that. I had some of the ideas from this channel. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us this entire day, and have a nice evening.